been many attempts to send a completed Gallimimus video out into the world. Each time I would finally get half of the footage recorded though, and a new horde test would go live and my misadventures would immediately be out of date. Honestly, I've scrapped probably 4 Galley videos in the last year due to horde tests. And so when I sat down once more, I actually had a nightmare that the Maya horde test started the next morning. Anyway, long story short, Dondi took pity on me and didn't drop a horde test mid-process this time. Gallimimus comes in 2 speeds, fast and dead. There is no in-between. I spawned in with an impressive speed of just over 55 kilometers per hour, and immediately boosted it further by selecting Photosynthetic Tissue. Not even a charging Carno could catch me during the day now. Of course, with great speed comes great responsibility. Did you know that an adult Gallimimus using photosynthetic tissue and maintaining a perfect diet can trot faster than a Cerrado can run? I was still only a sub-adult, but teasing Cerrados is always a fun time. After grabbing a drink, I made my way to where food was plentiful. It wasn't my actual migration or patrol, but as the food in my migration zone was the same food that grows in South, I decided to wait around there while a couple of friends spawned in and were making their way rapidly toward my location. I had just finished filling my stomach when a sub-Cerrado showed up. And then another. Very carefully I could fight too. But when the adult arrived, I decided it was time to go. Not worth getting myself killed after all. Then again, the sub decided he still wanted a galley sandwich. Who was I to tell him no? Two vomits in, and I was having a grand time. Only real issue was my inability to regain stamina by trotting. But the Cerrado was beginning to have regrets about chasing me into an open field. He turned and started making his way back toward where his friends had been, and I bothered him all the way there. When he saw that I had backup inbound though, he turned tail and vanished into the forest. That was fine. I needed food and water after vomiting. After filling my stomach, we headed to the southern pond for water, only to hear something coming up behind us. Like a typical galley, I startled away, checking my surroundings in all the wrong directions, until I literally crashed into the stego. After informing him that he'd scared me, I returned to the water. I decided I didn't like having the stego at my back though, and after taking a couple sips, I decided to move elsewhere along the water's edge for my drink. which was fine until I heard and saw a dino surface in the middle of the pond. Nope, don't like that one bit. I passed through some bushes to yet another spot on the water to drink, only to realize that I'd heard a Cerado stand up nearby and darted away again. Gallimimus is a flighty little thing, constantly on the move due to its overall fragile body. We moved carefully around the hill to see if we could spot the Cerado, and whoop, there he was. Same one that had attempted to hunt me earlier. He didn't seem overly interested in attacking, and I was already injured from our first scuffle. But a short standoff ensued. He was very defensive, nervous with two galleys circling him. We were still young though, discussing whether or not to even bother trying to finish him off. Ultimately, the decision was made for us. Backup arrived in the form of what I can only guess was a hitbox hacking Cerado. I vomited while he was still a great distance away, and without taking damage. Cool. Anyway, I respawned way out in the east, which was fine by me. Galley is the ultimate traveler. I figured I'd get started, then be on my way again. But as I traveled to the sanctuary, I spotted a familiar face. Land Dino. I couldn't do much damage. I was a tiny fresh spawn after all. But I bothered him until I was almost out of stamina before continuing on my way. A while later, I had regrown and met up with Arch. I had spotted a small Cerado watching us from the bushes. He didn't seem to want to fight very badly, and I hung back when Arch attacked. I wasn't really interested in beating up the Cerado, but I also may have gotten a bit too close while amusing myself, crouching to look non-threatening. Ow! He turned my galley's smile-shaped neck into a frown-shaped neck. Can't really blame him, of course, considering the circumstances, but now that I'd been made part of the fight, I helped finish him off. As we crossed the Delta Bridge, a raptor stepped out in front of us. Raptors are pretty well the only thing I really fear as a Gallimimus. Everything else I can run from if things go wrong. But when things go wrong against a raptor, it usually means I've been pounced flat and that's the end of my galley's life. With the raptor missing his pounce and then perhaps deciding that it wouldn't be smart to pin one of us anyway, he darted down to join his friend, a Dino. No, 2 Dinos. Three Dinos. I desperately wanted to get rid of that raptor. We stood and booed at him from a distance away until 2 more Dinos arrived with a dead one. Oh great. Not just mix packing, also overpacking Dinos. And then I got mildly distracted by something I thought I saw in the bushes up the hill. As I went to investigate, Arch started yelling. The raptor had pinned him. Shoot. I attempted to kick the raptor off of him, but I was too late. The dinos arrived and Arch went down. Now I was really agitated. That raptor was going to meet the menu screen if it was the last thing I did. I moved away and up onto the bridge. The dinos couldn't help him up there. He'd be on his own. But, as I said previously, all it takes is 1 pounce and my galley would be a goner. As I watched from the bridge, more dinos arrived. 7 dang dinos and a raptor. Gross. Eventually, though, I got what I was hoping for. The raptor had regained his stamina, and he decided he was going to try and kill me. My plan was simple. Lure him into pouncing and missing until he was low enough stamina that I could pummel him to death before he could reach the dinos again. He was running when he reached the bridge. Good. The more wasted stamina, the better. When I looped back toward him to encourage him to start running again, the dance began. Each time he started trotting back, I would lure him into chasing me again, laughing each time he missed a pounce, knowing he only had so many before he'd be too low on stamina to actually kill me, even if he did get me pinned. When he seemed hesitant to come back to my desired side of the bridge, I simply trotted away and sat down, daring him to come and get me. He took the bait, wasting more stamina running to reach me before I stood up again. More missed pounces, and then the opportunity of a lifetime. I jumped safely down a rock beside the bridge, and he missed his pounce. I heard his leg break, and the most devious grin appeared on my face. Gotcha. After the mix packing incident, I joined back up with Arch and we moved to Highlands. There we hoped to find more line diets. As we trotted around, a Dibble gave us a friendly call, and I did the same to Apache that had grabbed a drink. All seemed fine and dandy, until the Dibble simply decided to kill Arch for existing. Now, there's absolutely no way I was going to spend the time it would take to kill an adult Dibble as a galley. But bothering him, that I could do. He spotted the Patchy from before up the hill and decided to attack that, too. Dibble players, man. Eventually, I got bored and decided it was time to move on. As much as I disliked this Dibble, I had better things to do. Those better things were all the way in the northeastern side of the map. Finally, all three of us had managed to meet up, and we had found some pumpkins beside the lake. Sure, there was a Dilo on the hill, but what was he going to do against 3 galleys? Attack. That's what he was going to do. He was going to attack. And then we learned that he wasn't alone. 4 Dilos. A little less ideal. Regardless, one of them went down, and we quickly decided that our collective health and stamina pool was lower than preferred for continuing the fight. So we did what Galley does best. We absolutely flew out of there. One of the Dilos, though, was tracking us and hot on our tails. I sent the other 2 on ahead and turned back to distract it away. Farmer's blood pool was dangerously low. Couldn't have the Dilo finding him while he tried to sit and heal it off. With the Dilos far behind, we made our way to safety. Fairly sure the Dilo was tracking my footprints. Arch and I crossed the river while Farmer hid on a rocky ledge lower down. I got onto the bridge above and waited. Before long, I spotted one of them crossing the river. Yep, they must have been tracking Arch or myself. The others, though, sounded close to Farmer. I didn't have nearly the amount of stamina I would have liked, but I didn't want to risk them finding him. I stepped into the open and screamed, hearing rapid footfall immediately on one side of the wall, and watching the second turn to face my direction. I hoped that the one already within the road between the 2 fences would pass by Arch, and we could trap him between us. But the moment it turned to pass through the gap where Arch was hiding, I rushed him. We had him isolated, but we didn't have the health or the stamina to properly fight. With my stamina much too low to stay safely in the open, Arch grabbed their attention and led the Dilos on a wild goose chase away. Unfortunately, at some point during his flight, the Dilo hallucinations quite suddenly began working, and he was killed. Farmer and I regrouped and went to the northeastern sanctuary for water. It was night now, and we didn't want to be in the open where the Dilos might spot us again. Not until we healed. Of course, that's when the Cerrado jumped us. So much for healing in water, good grief. After that incident, we opted to go to the volcano pond for water, and to wait out the remainder of the night. By morning, we headed out to the plains for the food we so desperately needed. All seemed quiet for the most part. until Farmer spotted movement headed our way. The Dilos again. We weren't healed, but hey, we also weren't defenseless, right? All was going okay, until Farmer dropped. Suddenly, 2 Dilos were there, and I was on my own with low stamina. Nope. It was time to get out of Dodge. The less injured of the 2 chased me for a distance, but ultimately decided I wasn't worth the rest of his stamina bar. The next day, the 3 of us logged back in. Farmer and Arch had regrown while I was offline, and we met back up for what we hoped would be some great shenanigans. We were headed for south, expecting to find a Serrato that would pick a fight with us. We decided to run through the canyon because Herreras are notorious through there, and we didn't want to get jumped. Which was all fine and dandy, until Farmer crashed right at the exit. Perfectly within Herrera jumping range. Well, crap. I checked the rock face, but didn't see anything. He was desperately trying to get back in the server, but the queue was high. We could only hope that no one would come along in the 5 minutes it would take his galley to despawn. And then I heard the worst possible sound. The thud of a Herrera. He jumped, and I made a failed attempt to kick him out of the air. Ouch. There was nothing more I could do. Herrera bleed is no joke, and by the time I had moved to a spot that was relatively safe from additional pounces, my blood pool was nearly empty. Nah, there was no way I was getting out of this one. I could hear my heart racing. And then all went dark. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and comment your thoughts below. If you're new around here, please consider subscribing for more content like this. Thanks, and I'll see you soon.